I want to talk a little bit about the importance of hoof care. So with these guys being domesticated, and we've got them in a smaller place than 25 miles, it's important to keep their feet healthy, because without the healthy horse foot, there's a lot of other things that can break down. So, you know, it's one of the regular things you have to do. You know, we can do their teeth once a year, 2 times a year, some people, but their feet, 6 to 8 weeks on a trim, and then happy horse. You can go out and do what you want when you want, and it just increases your chances. It's one of the things you can control with keeping a horse, since anybody who owns a horse knows there's a lot of variables you can't control. So with keeping the feet good, it's just a good start for everything. So the first thing we do is we try to remove some of this sole and stuff that would naturally be removed by rocks and stuff in the wild. Horses in the wild walk about 25 miles in a day. So it's my job to come every so often, usually between 6 and 8 weeks for trims, to remove this tissue here that would be naturally removed in the wild. So now when I'm looking at this foot, there's some guidelines and boundaries. One thing, my first question when I started doing this a long time ago was, how do I know when to stop knifing at the sole like this? And we know now, this chalky material that just wants to come out easily, that's safe to take. When it starts to get shiny like that, we kind of want to leave that then. That's telling us that we're to the point where the horse would naturally wear it, so we don't need to go any further than that. Now, we want to trim the heels back. And the gauge that I go from is this central dot right in here in the central sulcus. I would like there to be at least 1/4 of an inch forward to back, but we're right dead on with the point of the heels. If it's within 1/4 of an inch of that center dot of that, then you're okay. Now the next thing I'm looking at is the widest part of the foot. So this is the widest part of the foot. Now what I would like is I would like to be 50% to the breakover in front of that line and 50% behind. So that's the next thing we got to do. I like to do like a 30-degree angle at the toe. When we studied wild horses and look at their feet, they have a nice breakover like that, naturally worn in their feet. So I'm trying my best to mimic nature, although, you know, we're far from it, but we're doing our best to do that. Now we see a situation here. There's a little bit, a crack here. This has anaerobic bacteria in it, so it's going to be important to cut that out. And in this environment here in South Carolina, it's not too uncommon for them to have little things like this, but it's aesthetic problem only. As you can see by me knifing that out, the horse isn't bothered by that at all. Now I check for level, and we're good. Now the next thing is to address flare. Now we're just addressing flare. We want to take all pressures off the lamina. If the horse is allowed to flare out, then with every step they're taking, it's pulling. It'd be like your fingernail being too long and you pushing it on a table. It would pull in there. Same thing happens for them. So now I want to remove all flare. I want there to be like a straight line. I don't want it to deviate and have a space like that. I want it to be straight. So the rasp is right up onto the hoof wall. All right, sweet. Now around the edge, I like to have it rounded like that. Rather than there be a sharp edge, I like it kind of rounded. It helps it keep from chipping. And also, if you cut it and it's sharp here, and they hit their other leg, their hoof can actually cut their leg. So you want to round that to make sure that it doesn't cut their leg. And that's one front foot.
How often should you do their feet?
It depends, and also it kind of depends regionally. Around here for a trim in the summertime, 6 to 8 weeks, really depends on the horse. Different breeds grow more. But I also have horses here in South Carolina that are every 4 weeks that I do them. So it's really up to the horse, and also what the owner's willing to spend. Some people get real worried if the horse's feet start chipping. Now, people who know better know that that's an aesthetic issue. The horse isn't bothered by that at all. And in fact, that's a little bit how they trim their feet in the wild. But some people want their feet to be perfect all the time. And in those cases, that has to be every 4 weeks. But it's not hurting the horse at all to go 6, 8 weeks. It's just as doing it consistently. If you ever drive by sometimes an old farm, you'll see sometimes horses that aren't done consistently, and it's hard on them. So it's an important thing to do. We used to get hung up on their hoof angles. We used to even have these things called hoof gauges. And you know, you'd have a vet tell you, I want the front feet to be 52 degrees and I want the back feet to be 45 degrees. Now, if that lines up with their shoulder angle, you're gonna be okay with that. But for some horses, forcing them into an angular thing like that the vet wants, it doesn't suit all horses to have that angle. So what works better is just reading the foot, because the foot will tell you what angle and where to trim for the horse's conformation. It's the hoof gauge kind of gets people into a spot where it'd be similar as saying, oh, you're 5'11", therefore you have to wear size 7 shoes. Well, I wear size 9 shoes. Well, sorry, the chart here says you're 5'11", so you have to wear these shoes. That's the same thing by forcing an angle on a horse. It's much better to do the angle that's good for each foot. I've had plenty of times where the proper angle for one back foot is different than the other back foot. Like that happens sometimes. So if you put them into you match the angles, that might not be the right thing for that horse. My love, okay.